So far in this series, we've talked a lot about how in PLO, if you want to win a big pot at Showdown, chances are you're going to have the nuts to do it. But that raises two important points. First, if we're folding all of our non-nut hands, we should probably be concerned with getting bluffed a lot by our opponents. And second, since you can't make the nuts very often, how are we going to win pots the rest of the time? The first question is something we're going to tackle in the next video, and it has to do with understanding your opponents and when they're likely to be bluffing. The second question is what we're going to explore today. And in Omaha, just like Hold'em, it's really important to be able to win pots even when you don't have a huge hand. Semi-bluffing refers to betting or raising with a draw, and if you've played a lot of Hold'em, chances are you're already familiar with the concept. You don't have a made hand yet, but you decide to take an aggressive line in the hand based on the strength of your draw and other factors like having position or your opponent showing weakness. So instead of just banking on hitting your draw to win the hand, you're actually giving yourself two ways of winning the pot because your opponent might just fold. And in PLO, since you get 4 hole cards, draws are way more common, and it's possible to have much stronger draws than you're used to in Hold'em. For that reason, there's way more semi-bluffing. Even though it's called semi-bluffing, betting and raising with a strong draw isn't really bluffing. If you have a really strong combination straight and flush draw, for example, chances are you're a favorite to win the hand anyway, so it's way more accurate to think of it as just betting and raising with a strong hand, even if it is a draw. Before we look at the conditions that are best for semi-bluffing, I want to show you a really special draw that you may not have seen before. If you've never played Omaha before, wrap draws are going to be a new concept for you. In Hold'em, the best possible straight draw is an open-ender, meaning you have 8 outs, 4 at the top end of the straight and 4 at the bottom. In Omaha, though, it's possible to have a straight draw with as many as 20 outs, which means your straight draw might actually make you a favorite to win the hand. Imagine you're holding 10-9-6-5 and the flop comes 8-7 deuce. Any 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, or jack will make you a straight. Now imagine you have a flush draw to go with it, and you can see that sometimes you can be a huge favorite to make the best hand, even though technically all you have is a draw. When you're deciding whether to take an aggressive line with your draws, there's more factors to consider than just your cards. Is your opponent a tight player who folds everything except the nuts? Has he shown you any weakness in the hand so far by checking on previous streets? Do you have position in the hand? It's always better to bluff when you're in position because if your opponent does call, you get to see what he does on the next betting round before making your next decision. So, look for spots where you have strong draws and some of these other factors working for you when you're deciding when to semi-bluff. Another good spot for bluffing in PLO is when you don't have the nut hand, but you do have some of the cards that your opponent would need to make the nuts. Imagine the board is king, queen, deuce, all spades, and you have the ace of spades, but no flush draw. Even though you know you can't make a flush, you do know that your opponent can't have the nut flush. If he's the kind of player that you know is scared to play a big pot without the nuts, you can use your blocker to take an aggressive line and try to push him off his hand. These kind of naked bluffs are a lot more dangerous because you don't have any outs to fall back on if you do get called, so use them sparingly and only when the conditions are right. Whether it's Texas Hold'em, Pot-Limit Omaha, or any other kind of poker, if you can understand how your opponents think and play, you can beat them. And that's exactly what we're going to explore in the next video. We'll break down some of the common styles of players you'll meet at the PLO tables, and we'll give you some tips on how to exploit them and protect yourself from being exploited. PokerListings.com, the all-in poker guide.